the first and simplest emotion which we discover in the human mind is curiosity.
But if they're expressing that curiosity, then that is exactly the time to show them, because that's when their interest is piqued in it.
Which suggests that while curiosity can lead to trouble, I know that well, it can also lead to rewarding discoveries.
They say curiosity killed the cat, but was it really curiosity, or was it something else? In today's episode of the Evolving Mindsets podcast, we're digging into one of the most misunderstood traits, curiosity. Is it a dangerous impulse that leads to trouble? Or is it the secret to unlocking growth, learning, and deeper human connection? We also have a special guest, Libby Baggett, who's turning her own curiosity into impact by launching a nonprofit focused on healing and transformation. Plus, we're exploring how curiosity shapes leadership, childhood development, and even personal belief systems. And we're revealing the full version of the famous phrase that nobody talks about. Stick around, you might just start looking at curiosity in a whole new way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Crack the Code podcast. This is your host, Clint Baggett, and I am here with Shane Russell, aka the Hood Hippie, the lovely Shannon Baggett, and today we have a very special guest with us who is my niece and a member of the Evolving Mindsets community, Libby Baggett, and we're working together on her project, which is starting a nonprofit called At Home. And I'd like to give her a chance to introduce herself, and then we're going to get into the topic for today, which is about curiosity. And we're going to try to crack the code and answer the question, did curiosity really kill the cat? Or what does that even mean in the first place? But before that, I want to give Libby a chance to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about your project.
Hi, thank you for the introduction and having me on your podcast. So At Home, it's a therapeutic house of mental escape. Essentially, it's an idea I've been playing with for a couple of years, but it's simmered down to, when people's nervous systems are dysregulated and they're coming from a place of hurt and pain, it's going to be like a therapeutic or transitional home or house to re-regulate your nervous system, to find that natural homeostasis of mind and body and spirit to help redirect you on whichever path it is that you are wanting to go and help provide resources.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm loving working on this with you and watching it unfold. There's definitely a gap out there in care, and there may be some out there who are feeling that in various ways, but there isn't enough. So very happy to support you in standing up and addressing that need. So thank you for being willing to be brave and put yourself out there and add some good into the world. Really appreciate it. All right, so from there, let's jump into the topic. So did curiosity kill the cat? This is what I was thinking as I was driving back from Burning Man, which just happened over the past couple weeks. And the theme of Burning Man was curiouser and curiouser. And, in theme, right, as I was going through the period of time while I was out there day by day, there was a lot of very curious things that happened. And of course, at a Burning Man, you can expect something like this. But I was reflecting on it on the way back and thinking about curiosity and the benefit that just being aware and being curious about my environment and studying it and learning and being observant and asking questions, the benefit that I was gaining from curiosity. And that sentence, that phrase popped into my head like an echo from the past and said, well, curiosity killed the cat. And I found myself all of a sudden kind of mildly offended by that idea. And I'm like, there was a time many years ago when I was out with some friends. We went down to the creek and I went running down this embankment to jump in the water and land near where I seen someone swimming. But what I didn't know is that person was actually laying on their stomach just under the surface of very shallow water. And while I was jumping in midair, they jumped up and I was like, oh crap, but it was too late. I came down and I ended up breaking my ankle. And there was no curiosity in that, but that hurt. Now, what I find is like if I'm out and there's water I want to go swimming in and I love jumping off into the water, like I get curious about the water first. I go swim in the water and I see how deep the water is and I see where the rocks are. And so in my mind, curiosity actually prevents a lot of damage for me, right? And so that's what I had asked, Shane and Shannon and now Libby too, if we want to just talk about, the benefits of curiosity and how curiosity is portrayed in society, the effects of it. Is there a time when curiosity maybe isn't appropriate, and how do we know the difference? And that's what I'd like to see us crack the code together. And for anybody listening or watching on YouTube or whatever it is, would love to hear your comments, your thoughts. Did curiosity kill the cat? Today, I'm going to stand in defense of curiosity. I believe curiosity is a beautiful aspect to withhold and a beautiful trait to embrace in your life. Get curious about everything that's around you, learn and explore. And I think it's the root of doing what we do, which is cracking the code and solving the problems that we face on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I would like to hear from my friends here, like, what are your perspectives and opinions? So Shannon, let's start with you. What do you think about curiosity?
I'm with you on curiosity being a good thing. As a parent of two kids who like to get into trouble, quote unquote trouble, like most of the time, that trouble is just them being curious. How do things work? What happens if I, dump this into this liquid and this and that? And I came across a quote kind of along the same lines by Edmund Burke that said, "The first and simplest emotion which we discover in the human mind is curiosity."
That's
And
beautiful.
that made me think about a funny thing I came across a while back. Um, as humans, if you picture anything in the room right now, literally anything, you can picture your TV, your cat, scratching post, your dresser, without ever having to do this, you know exactly what that would feel like on your tongue and how that would taste. And that all stems from being a baby. And you watch little babies, they're putting everything they possibly can into their mouth. They're grabbing it, and it's the first place that it goes.
Totally.
And that creates, all of these neural pathways into their brain, figuring out like what things do and how things taste and how things feel. And the fact that like you can look across and know exactly what your TV would taste like if you licked it goes all the way back from when you were, 2 years old and younger. That's
Yeah,
just with
that's
you permanently forever.
Yeah, I'm literally imagining the taste of a TV, and I'm pretty confident if I went and licked it, I would know what it tastes like, and that I find that frightening. Like,
Right?
why
It's
do I
sort
know
of,
what my TV will taste like?
I know, it's sort of terrifying that you go, oh my God, I do know exactly what it would feel like to lick that suitcase. but but that is all because as a baby, the some of the very first things that you do as a new human on this planet is to figure out how stuff works.
Yeah, yeah,
You
that
know,
makes it makes sense, right? Like before we have that, because we lose some conscious awareness, like of those years, those formative years, right? You don't really remember. Some people might, but most people don't remember being a baby, but yet that's when you learned that, right? And so it is this
yeah,
kind of instinctual, like hidden, fascination or fascinating fact about humanity. That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It's just it's ingrained with you for the rest of your life, and so I think curiosity plays a vital role in growing up and learning about things. And I think if you lose any sort of curiosity in your life, you become pretty stagnant as a
Totally.
person.
Yeah.
How about you, Shane?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, curiosity I mean, there's a lot in there. There's the, I believe that curiosity is really the reason why we're not cavemen anymore. I mean, seriously. But if you think about it, there were a lot of casualties in the curiosity factor of coming from cavemen to where we are now. Like you think about like hunters and gatherers, like berries and mushrooms and stuff that they were finding. Like, like people, like how do they figure out what could be like mushrooms could be eaten, which could not? Like somebody, did they rock, paper, scissors it? Somebody had to like, die to, you know, to find the good stuff. Like other people probably perished, and the curiosity, like, hey, can we eat this or whatever? So there's a survival thing that helped us evolve in there. But then there's also, you know, uh, there's, I think we curiosity can also be painful if we just, jump into something. And, Clint, I love the analogy of the water jumping. When I was going to Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas, we would go out to this river that had like a 60-foot suspended bridge, and we would drive onto the middle of the bridge, and one person would drive, and three of us would jump into the river, and then the driver would have to get back to the edge, and we'd have to swim real fast because they would arrest you to get back. But it was like, a 5-second like free fall or whatever before you hit the water. Well, we stopped because some girl jumped into like a dead rotting cow that was underwater. She like jumped right into the body, so we didn't do that anymore. But back to my point, yeah, back to my point. Like, there's casualties in our curiosity, and but and when I was a little kid, I just so young, I realized the miracle that life is. So I've always had just a sense of just faith and or invincibility. Like, this is impossible. I'm here. It's going to be impossible that I'm there. Like I'm bulletproof, basically. And and so I've done some of the most stupid stuff, really, that maybe all people collectively have done ever, and walked away from it. And it's been a lot of painful lessons. But what curiosity taught me was that I have more lives than probably a herd of cats. And, it's
There's
helped
a,
me. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, there's an element of bravery that's required for it, right? And it's interesting because if there's something that you're really afraid of, to your point, if you'll get curious about it, you can collect information and confidence to overcome the fear of it. But it does require some bravery. And I love what you said, like curiosity has some casualties. Like it happens. It does happen. Like you have to be cautious with this curiosity, right? But you don't want to definitely like just write curiosity. In my opinion, I don't want to write curiosity off as bad. I think, that's kind of the theme. What I'm hearing is that it's core and essential to anything that we want to grow or progress on. Sorry, man. Go ahead, please continue.
No, no, I totally agree. I think, when we're younger, especially like little kids, like you do some just stuff like, you're curious, I wonder what this paperclip will do if I stick into this light socket or whatever, like, man, like so many things. And, but the pain of those, just like, the outcomes of just doing it without like thinking it through and or getting more information, just the random impulse of part of approaching curiosity, like, it can be painful, and it helps you know, like, hey, I'm not gonna do that again, and I'm definitely not gonna do, to just approach your inquiries in a more strategic fashion, do some research and think it through and discuss it with other people for, sanity check, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
For
But I mean,
I think oh,
no, go ahead.
for me, when we talk about curiosity, a couple of different things come up. One of the things that came up was that you guys were talking about earlier about being young, but I believe we were all like born with a universal intelligence, and then we are, raised in a way to speak like the human language in whichever culture and environment that we're in, and then we are conditioned to communicate in that way, right? And then a lot of growing up is learning how to rediscover yourself and rediscover, be curious about the different facets of life itself. I also another thing was that um, in the human mind, like when you focus on something, you tend to see it more, right? And so, like being curious is like going forth into the unknown, like, and everything could essentially be an unknown if you don't have a plan. And if you are nervous or scared or worried, you hear that like that is going, it's gonna be more likely for the thing you're worrying about to happen than not, if you had not worried, and just been open to the unknown and to the possibilities of growth or whatever it might be.
Totally. If I can, it just you triggered up a memory. Just a few days ago at Burning Man, like I had this guy come up to me and he said, hey, do you mind if I hang out near you? He goes, I just feel safer when I'm close by to you. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, man. Come hang out with, and I was like, what's going on? And he's like, that person over there. And he points to this person. He goes, he was really, in my face and, kind of just being rude and I just don't really feel safe around that person. He's like, and he's kind of like starts trying to encourage me to get rid of that person. Well, I knew the person, and I knew the person was one of the kindest, nicest, sweetest people I've ever met. And I'm like, it's Burning Man. We've been out here for like 8 days. We're all sunbaked and tired and exhausted and in various forms and states of mental clarity. I was like, maybe just just let it go. And it's like, you moved yourself away from a situation that was uncomfortable, but if you keep worrying about it, and this to your point, if you keep worrying about it and focusing on it and focusing on that person in that way, you're probably going to draw that interaction out of them. And I said, so
Right.
instead, I go, just take a moment and imagine going the rest of this night having the best time you've had, and that person never bothers you again. And hold that in your mind and see if that will produce for you exactly what you're looking for. And I don't think he was expecting that kind of response from me at that moment, but he nodded and he's like, yeah, he's like, I'll do that. And I watched them continue to dance throughout the night and all this stuff, and I kept my eye because I want to make sure that everybody's safe and nobody's really being aggressive. Even if they are a good person, sometimes we can just get beside ourselves or whatnot. Um, but and I watched them, and they had fun, and they danced and they played, and everything was great, and they even interacted throughout the rest of the evening, and there was never a problem again. And I think that to me, that just backs up exactly, Libby, what you were saying. Like, if you focus on that thing, you might actually make that thing more likely to occur. Is that the point? Did I
We
capture that right?
right, yeah, we sort of like mirror each other because if you think about it, if someone is in like a hostile or like worked up sort of energy, the people around them are also going to feel that and meet that where it is. And then it's only gonna perpetuate from there, and so when you do have someone who is able to take a step back and maintain a calm mind, then, it kind of untethers or diffuses the situation,
Yeah, exactly. Right.
allowing
Like,
to further go into what is going on. Let's be curious, why are we feeling this way? What is this? What is that kinda thing?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Oh,
be
go ahead, Shane.
objective. Yeah, like approach it objectively, you know, from a broad perspective. But I mean, going into our curiosities level headed and not worried and, you know, like in a structured and non-reckless manner, like going into it with the right mindset, the positive thing, going into it positively, with the right intention and frequency or whatever is going to definitely get the best results out of our hypothesis of whatever the expedition of curiosity we want to engage in with, and just like everything, the mindset going into it is definitely, um, it's important.
Right. I mean, along what you were saying and what Libby was saying too, like when dealing with, uh, you know, people around you who maybe are expressing themselves in ways that like doesn't really align with yourself. Um, you can have two reactions, really. You can be really annoyed at the person, like, oh, I can't believe they're doing this or they're acting that way. Or you could be the curious person and be like, I wonder why they do that. And, you know, it- that's kind of how you become friends with people, right? Like, what do you like? Do you like Godzilla? Cool. I like Godzilla too. Let's be friends. Or, it's also how you fall in love. You meet somebody and something triggers and you get to know them. You're curious about them. And so curiosity can lead to friendships and relationships. And it can also, if you go about it the right way, lead to like diffusing certain volatile situations with like
Totally.
another person.
No, I totally agree, Shannon. Like it's the Socratic method, like to really like take something and analyze it in a way that you can look at it from all angles outside of the box, but you can use your curiosity to ask a bunch of questions from every single perspective that you can think of, and through asking the questions, you can get to the core of what your hypothesis is or whatever. And so I really love that point.
Yeah.
And I just got to say, like, we just solved world peace, or Shannon, you just basically made world peace right there. Like, I think you just gave the formula for it. Like, I'm like, that was perfectly said. Like, how true is that? When having, an interaction with someone else and it feels like they're out of alignment, you nailed it. There's two paths. Like, one, you can get annoyed and you can go, oh, that person's wrong and I need to correct them or control their behavior, or they need to control their behavior, or how dare they not control their behavior in my presence, right? You can take that view of it if you want. And or to your point, like, you can just get curious. I wonder why they're doing that. And I think for me, like, that feels like my default mode. Like, I see something strange and different. It's why I love going to Burning Man. You're never going to find a place on the world, in the planet, that I can think of where you're going to see as many strange and different things. I had someone come up to me and, like, they're like, you just have this really strong energy up. And there's about 100 things that I expected to come next. But the answer I got was not the one I was expecting. They're like, you have like this energy of like dwarves and gnomes. And I'm like, I why would they say that? Like, I instantly,
Right.
I'm
You can
curious.
you
I'm
can
not
take
offended
that,
by it, but I'm like, what does that mean?
right? But some people would be offended by that.
Yeah, right. Like,
But
what does it
you
mean? I'm
ask the
short.
why. You're like, why would they say that? Like, that's a
But
funny thing. I take it as a compliment, but like, there's the why, the curiosity. Like, why would you
but
say that? I love
Yeah,
Clint,
the why.
knowing
yeah.
you, man, you do ask the questions though. Like, a lot of times if somebody's like falling out of alignment or whatever, and like you ask the right questions that will make people realize, like, damn, like that's a good question. Like, kind of pull people out of it. But yeah, that you do not have any shame or fear of diplomatically using educated questions to get to the bottom of matters such as that. I'm saying, without offending people. Like, I mean, what? Awesome. What would make you say that? Like, super, like, diplomatically, but your curiosity makes you ask a lot of questions that has got you to the point that you are. And
Yeah, no, totally, man, and thank you for that. And like, it made me think while you're saying that. There's even a time that backfires. So I love, like, kind of going back to what you were saying about curiosity and the casualties. So just to give an example of that, so that person told me, I have the energy of dwarves and gnomes, and honestly, I reflected on it for a minute, and I go, oh, really? And like, I was like, tell me about that, and so they're kind of explaining. And I was thinking, well, like, I do like the mountains, and that's like where, according to lore, dwarves and gnomes come from. I have a big beard and, this hair, and like, and I'm like, there was actually, like, when I think of what I do know about Norms, I'm like, yeah, no, it all checks. Like, yeah, I get that. And so I was curious, and that person was very loving, and, was just answering questions, and, like, it was a really great interaction. But there was a different situation that happened a couple days later where someone was really, they thought in their perspective that I had wronged them. And so I was like, I got curious. I'm like, oh shit, how did I wrong them? I don't know. Like maybe, did I? And so I started to ask questions, right? Like, well, why do you feel that way? And like, and honest to God, I was just from my heart, like, I want to understand this. Like, I'm totally okay. Like, look, I'm here and I'm happy to make amends and, we can solve this out, but I just want to understand what it is that we're solving, and I want to understand what the flavor of this interaction is, so that I can appreciate it fully and I can learn and I can grow from it and all this kind of stuff. But I could tell, like, I realized it a little bit too late. About 4 questions in, I was pissing this person off. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and they thought I was like not being curious, but they thought I was questioning them, like, why do you have the right to think that? Like it was like I was like judging or indicting them in some way. Does that make sense to you, Shay?
It's the norm. It's totally the norm. You know what I'm saying? Like these days, there's a lot of people that are hypersensitive to, but I mean, but the bottom line is it's mutually advantageous for everybody involved in these endeavors, to get the best context. Like if I'm interviewing or whatever, to understand the question that they're asking me, why they're asking me that question, so I can give them the best answer, which is basically the purest, optimal point of communicating with anyone. But I can definitely see how this day and age that um, people aren't as kind and or polite and or as open minded. Um, I mean, a lot of people are, but some aren't, and
Would
so I can see how people could definitely take offense to it. I mean, I get that too.
would you
Go
say
ahead, Libby.
people are like they're defensive?
Yes, that's exactly it.
They're almost like protective of their own identity, right? And it's like when you have someone else who's kind of curious about who you are, um, you're like, hey, I don't know you, because that's kind of where in my relationships I wanted to really start to like really take time to get to know people rather than just like have like that instant like connection and then just assume like, oh, we're this is like a connection kind of thing, right? But to just, allow more time, like with school and the people who I have class with. Like I didn't immediately make a bunch of friends. I kind of sit and I observe and I people watch before like actually like initiating conversations or being curious about someone and what they're about, but just kind of sit back and watching. Um what I was gonna say something earlier too, but I've lost it. So
Well,
Yeah.
No,
people watching is a form of curiosity, right?
Mhm.
Like, if you didn't care, like, you would just have your head down. But, like, just watching how people interact is like you're learning about them, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think you don't even have to ask questions in order for a situation like that to show that, like, you are a curious person.
And, on the topic of, like, the casualties of curiosity, it makes me think about, like, the different, um, employment opportunities that I've had and how I have been curious and I have questioned and I have, like, should this be done differently or should we do that differently or why do we do it this way? And then, you become curious and you wanna know more, but then you get sh or at least in my experience, you get shut down and not further explained or, and I think that entails when there should be like transparency with that curiosity. Otherwise, it's like clearly someone has got something to hide. And then that curiosity will, cause that casualty. Yes, Clinton.
Yeah. No, totally. I was thinking about this, right? Like you were talking about employment opportunities, and something that came up for me was, to some level, I think that if you're going to get curious about someone else, there has to be some level of consent there, right? You know what I mean? Like when you're in a really social environment like a festival, like there's some implied consent, right? You know what I mean? Like people are coming up, you're showing yourself friendly, you're showing yourself open to be engaged and stuff like that. So I think, you're inviting some curiosity. But like you mentioned employment, and as a leader, as a manager, right? I was always really curious about my employees. Like I wanted to know like about their life and about, what they did for their hobbies and all this kind of stuff. But there's some lines there, like in that relationship where, you know, you have to be careful about perceptions of bias and different things like that. And so as a manager, you don't want to go probing too much into the personal affairs of someone who's working, especially, and to respect their privacy and stuff. So I found that in those situations, like I would always ask for like, hey, like I'm really curious about this and I'd love to get to know you more. Would it be all right if I ask you some questions about that? And that way I could get a level of consent from the person I was being curious about. And I think that in I'll call it, I know it's not necessarily an intimate relationship as a manager employee. I believe there is an intimacy there. You're going to spend 40 hours a week together. Like you ought to have a fairly good understanding of who each other is. But, like, but in maybe relationships, even and stuff like that, right? Letting people know I'm curious and I want to get to know more and I'd love to ask you some questions. Could that potentially disarm some of that native defensiveness? Like, what do you think, Shannon?
You,
She's trying to unmute herself.
Sorry, getting the hang of this whole thing. No, I agree with what you're saying, Clint, but I just wanted to go back to what Libby was saying is, I think kind of what she was referring to more is like, why do we follow the procedures that we do and getting shut down? Like maybe the responses are like, that's
Gotcha.
above your pay grade, or, like, and I think in some cases in the business world, like it really caps the creativity that
It,
you allow, the people, like you could come up with a million different ways. Like really, the if you gave the laziest person in your office a task, they're going to come up with the best, most simplest way to do it that could save everybody time. But it's like you just have to like be curious to the people around you and what can they accomplish, and let people ask questions because they might have amazing ideas that could transform how things work and the efficiency of
totally.
things.
100%. And I remember a couple years ago, you and I had the conversation with the kids, right? Like, when is the right time to teach them things? And we both agreed when they start asking. And you had brought out an article that you had researched where it was in another country where they were saying something about like, their kids are very involved and very helpful. And it's because when they show interest in something, right, like they allow them to come do it. And a lot of times, and I think in some of our modern culture, we want to push our kids away and go, oh, I can do it better. I can do it faster. I don't want to take the time to show them. But if they're expressing that curiosity, then that is exactly the time to show them because that's when their interest is peaked in it. And to come bring that back around in the workplace, I also found this with my employees. Like, if my employees are coming to me asking me how something is done, one, as a manager, I should probably already know. Like, I should be able to give them clear, definitive answers that satisfy their curiosity so that they feel connected to the workplace, they feel connected to the business, they feel connected to the environment. And to your point, so that they can bring forward those new ideas that can innovate and can grow and create opportunity for change and all that. So yeah, I absolutely love that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, Chan.
Oh, no, it's just funny you bring up that article because that's honestly like one of the best things I ever read. Like
Yeah,
coming
tell us about it.
across, yeah, coming across things for like you're trying to be the best parent that you can be. And that article, I think, just blew my mind in a lot of ways because the article was just sort of like the the weird, I don't even know if it's a hypocrisy or it's just the conundrum. Like your children come to you when they're like they're watching you do things and they want to help. Can I help you mop the floor? Can I help you do the dishes? Can I help you fold laundry? And you know, you're like, no, because yeah, you can do it better, you can do it faster. Like they're not going to do a great job. They're two or three or whatever. And so you poo poo them away. But then when they're 10 or 12 and you're trying to give them chores, you're super pissed because they don't know how to do it or they don't do a good job. And then they have no interest at 10 or 12. But it's like in these other countries, these kids are involved in cleaning the house and helping with the cooking. And it doesn't matter that they do a bad job. Let them do a bad job there too. But the more they do it and the more that they contribute to be a part of like their little familial society, it will stay with them always. You will have helpers around the house because they were brought up being allowed to do it. Who cares if they do a bad job? Go back after them and, clean up a little bit. But you're squashing that creativity as parents a lot of times, and that curiosity. Can I do
Yeah.
this? Can I help?
No, I think that is awesome, Shannon. Rapport is paramount to this whole human experience, and I love everything that y'all just said, because from that aspect, but also to the workplace, because Libby, you had mentioned like observation, like instead of like just peeing on the electric fence to see what happens, like maybe you should observe other people try things, or be who they are first, and
Let
wonder
someone else
about it.
pee on it first.
Yeah, wonder about it, and then just naturally, as the opportunities arise, you start building rapport. And Clint, like, we got here because of basically everything that y'all just said. We started working together. You were my boss, and I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. I was coming out of trauma. Like, I was like broke more stuff at the company that had ever thought could be done, just accidentally. And I was just kind of like hanging by a thread, and you came in and you asked me a lot of questions, and it's those questions that and you always did it like so with finesse. You made me understand that you look, we all benefit from having the best information, and if we're going to do anything with anyone on any front, like, being on the same page is optimal. So you would make it very natural for people to be able to openly talk to you, and just by asking the right questions, you didn't ever have to even like, just asking the questions sometimes, back to the Socratic method, really helps unbox things and helps people, understand, you know, what the intention behind the curiosity is. But
Yeah. Well,
it,
totally. There's, I mean, because there's so much, I've observed, I've had people, I've been in the experience where I've done something and the perception, the stereotypical perception that was applied to me from other people wasn't accurate. It didn't actually fit any of my intentions. It didn't fit any of my, reasoning or anything like that. But instead of being curious, I felt like I was put in a box. And I really didn't like that. I was like, hey, like, what about me? Like, I'm an individual person, and these are my thoughts, and these are my feelings, and these are my stuff. You know what I mean? And so there was at points, especially when I was young, and in the societies that I grew up in, like, you're just, people knew what you were. You didn't get any individuality. You're just told, this is what you do. You're a child. They're better seen than not, or better seen than heard. Like, be quiet and go mind your stuff, and all that kind of stuff. So, I think that sparked that up to me. Like, I did genuinely, like, I'm like, look, before I make an opinion about somebody, or decide, or but feel that I know what's going on, how about I just ask some questions and really figure it out? Like, you really know and really truly understand. Because there's so many times that, like, you can uncover some beautiful truths about people that are really powerful and can give you a deeper understanding into life, because they have a perspective through their experience that you've never had. And when I can see a different perspective on an experience than what I'm used to, or than what my experience has provided me, I feel like it's that right and left eye. I now have depth perception. I can't fully understand something if I can only see it from one angle, but if I can see it from multiple angles, then I can really start to get the picture of it. And so, to your point, thank you for that. You're like, so much, but like, that's what drives the curiosity for me, is I really want to understand, like, what's going on.
yeah, it's intelligence, creative curiosity with the most ideal intention behind it, which is ironically how we got here, evolving our mindset. Like, again,
Yeah.
this is the reason why we're not cavemen anymore. Like we are curious about finding the best, most inspiring information that we can together. That's what we're doing here, to help each other up and as many people up to higher ground as possible. I mean, it's a miracle to be alive. And we do have questions to ask. Socrates, they killed him, and all he did was he would go hang out with like all these big people in society, just like we have in ours, in the government or whatever. And he would get in front of a bunch of people and just start asking questions. And by the time he got done asking questions, he would have done nothing but ask questions, but he would have totally humiliated the pompous aristocrat or whatever, because he would, after all the questions, everybody involved would realize that the answer oftentimes lies in the question. But
Yeah.
we really do have to approach it like the scientific method, and like not just have random impulses, because
Well,
it can hurt a lot of people,
well,
sometimes.
yeah. And what were you like? It's totally right. And I think that's kind of the whole point about this, right? Is like, I think it was you, Shane, who was telling me you did some research on did curiosity kill the cat? The statement, and I think Shannon, you said you had found some quotes on this too. I'd love to hear from both of you, but I think Shane, you were mentioning that like, did curiosity kill the cat? That's not even the whole sentence. Like, there's more on that. Was that you earlier, or was that you, Shannon, who was talking about that?
No, that was me.
Yeah,
No,
can you have that available? Can you share a tidbit of that? Because I thought it was really interesting.
yeah, no, I asked Copilot. I was just curious about curiosity. And so I asked Copilot, like, hey, I'm curious about curiosity. And did curiosity kill the cat? And so Copilot came back like R2D2 or whatever. The phrase curiosity killed the cat is a proverb used to warn against unnecessary investigation or experimentation, kind of what we were just talking about. The full
Right.
saying is actually curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back, which
I love that.
suggests that while curiosity can lead to trouble, I mean, I know that well, it can also lead to rewarding discoveries. It's a lighthearted way to remind us to be cautious, but also to embrace our natural inquisitiveness. So yeah.
Yeah. See, like, and that's it's so interesting, right? Like that in itself, the whole statement in its full context is beautiful. But if you just take half of it, you know what I mean? Like, it becomes this warning and indictment of curiosity. And that's kind of where I think the thoughts started with me. I'm like, I don't like that. And I was like, it doesn't feel right. But then when I heard you finish and read the rest of the quote, I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. I'm totally on board, with that, because then we're just addressing what you talked about, which is, look, curiosity does have some casualties. It does, right? Like, hey, what's it going to feel like when I stick my hand in that fire? That's going to hurt.
Dude,
You're going to find out, right?
like I've done more stupid human tricks ever than anyone. Yeah, and this cat has more lives than a herd of cats is what I figured out. But it's that part of the sentence, but satisfaction brought it back. In my experience, I had to learn some things the hard way through my curiosity. And but the satisfaction that I have found after just totally obliterating myself a couple of times, like, bouncing off the bottom, is the satisfaction that brought me back, which has literally happened so many times and it's happening right now, is that I've had to, in a lot of ways, lose everything to find it all, and, it's been, a lot going from, my faith was so strong that I would just do crazy stuff. And, like the things that I've walked away from has, to me, it's proven that miracles are real and that God is real and also has a sense of humor. But
And it was
and that's,
curiosity that led you to your co-pilot R2D2 exploring AI as well, right?
it was indeed. And there's another part of curiosity too. And I always want to keep things focused on the positive, but like there are evil, mean people haters. Like curiosity could also be like a sadistic, like messed up thing too, which, just want to point that out just for keeping it real purposes. But you know what I'm saying? Like people that don't like,
Ill-intentioned curiosity.
yeah,
Could I
that
potentially cause harm? Like, yeah, so ooh, that's powerful, right? Like
Openhauer or
what is curiosity with intention, right? And so maybe that's kind of a core thread here too, is like curiosity is powerful, but maybe we should also think about, why are we curious? What is the intention in our
yeah,
curiosity? Are we looking for a way to judge, or are we looking for a way to understand?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I don't know, Shannon, what do you think?
No, I really like that statement a lot, Clint. I think that's a good way to put it, right? Are you looking to judge or are you looking to understand? Um, I think that's pretty powerful.
yeah.
Just yeah, listening to Shane talk, something, you know, talking about curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. I think the quote works on a couple different levels, but one of the main things, it works for cats because cats have 9 lives, right? Like curiosity isn't
I
going to
love
kill
that.
everybody, right? But like cats, they can look and learn, and maybe they lost one life to that curiosity,
They
but
got eight times to figure it out.
8 times to figure it out, right? And they
And they always
learned
land on
and
their
they're
feet.
satisfied with that answer and they can move on to the next question, right?
Totally. Totally.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I honestly think it's that quote only works because of cat. It wouldn't work for anything else.
The
Well, if you also
curiosity
think
killed
about
the
it too,
dog would be a totally different thing.
Yeah, that would be the end of the quote.
That's cute. I like that. I like that. Sorry, Shane, go ahead.
no, I was just saying like, but they still land on their feet, somehow, some way, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
which
For
makes it another perspective to
Yeah.
add into it.
Libby, I don't know. You have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I just something just popped up in my head was like, you know, um, when you are, you know, gosh, I don't know how to word it, but essentially, like within like the human dynamic and people trying to write specific narratives and to and it's like who should you believe, like kind of thing, like that curiosity where it comes in and it's like, okay, like I've known you longer, so I trust you, but you also seem sincere, like that is to try and decipher who is who and what is what, and like because sometimes I feel like I don't know if this necessarily happens or not, but it's probably one of my irrational fears that like, there's people who have more power than me that are writing my narrative for me rather than allowing me to be my authentic self as I am and still be accepted as that and to grow as that person. But rather they're, taking the I have those self-limiting beliefs, and then I might even project those and believe that others are having those self-limiting beliefs on me, and that's keeping me held back rather than being curious about the expansion or uh the
The
self-discovery
possibility.
or the possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, I think, profound angle to bring into this. And like I love that,
Absolutely.
because like what a good point, right? Like if you're looking to understand, does a behavior repeat itself? How true is something, right? You're looking for repeating signs or compelling evidence. And so what's interesting, if you're curious, if your curiosity is to the mental note of, do I suck? Right? Like, like you're going to look around and go, well, where is there evidence that I suck? And what do I suck at? And oh my God, I do. Oh shit, and you kind of, to bring it back to the point we were making earlier, like you may actually kind of create and reinforce that narrative. But so, like, is that curiosity? I mean, if you're trying to move something from an idea into a belief, it seems like there needs to be curiosity there. I think maybe that even comes back to the being aware of your intention in the curiosity. What are you trying to discover, right? Like I found this, like when I'm really looking into my soul for answers, I've learned not to ask myself, what the hell is wrong with me? Because my subconscious will answer that question and I will cry for days. So they're like, oh my God, everything's wrong with me.
Yeah.
But I found if I'll ask into my heart, my soul, and my subconscious, right? Like, what's good about me? How can I be stronger? What, if I'm curious about that thing that I want, I can find my way to that.
Yeah,
Right? Does
because
that,
it's like when you think about a yellow car, you see yellow cars on the road kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, does that
Yeah,
make
that's
sense?
kind
Oh, go ahead, Shane.
no, that's kind of what we were talking about, like in the beginning. Like the mindset going into our curiosity. It's important, and to again approach it strategically, and to to ask the questions to get to the bottom of it all, so that you know like I love your point, Libby. Like we want to make sure that the information that we're providing to others or whatever isn't for creating narratives to be exploited or controlled or whatever. Um, and I think that you know approaching it in a way that you think everything through and you're seeking the highest um, answers to the questions that we could possibly have, like outside of the box from every single angle. That is, the benefit for everybody involved, of being curious. To 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 elevate, like to help ourselves transcend. Um, Keeping that
Yeah, it's
curiosity. I
totally
mean,
confirmation bias. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
it's all confirmation bias. Like if you go into it expecting bad results, that's what you're gonna get.
yeah, and then also another thing is, like, from the music festival perspective. Clint and I went to the Texas Eclipse Festival last spring, and I mean, I've been curious about Woodstock and these things for a long time, and but I'm also someone that doesn't easily get offended, and like I'm not judgmental. Like I just like like live and let live. Like just stay in your lane. I'm in my lane. So the music festival, like all these people show up, for the same. It's curiosity and the interaction of being with other people that are also curious and able to show up in their completely authentic self in the judgment free zone, um, in a way that there's no negativity, and everybody can just be who they really are. um, to me, that was a mind blowing experience, because I realized that there are way more awesome people out in the world than it feels like there are sometimes. If you just watch the news, like, it's, but, and when you get people, those like minded, open minded, non judgmental uh, people together, to share their awesomeness, which is a common denominator we all have because we all have things that make us super unique and you know a value add. There was no police there. There was no theft or violence or, like, I don't know. It was just like utopia. And so the curiosity of just wanting to go there, and then of being able to be exposed to literally almost, I mean, really anything that wasn't bad is how I, because there's, so the fact that Burning Man was curiosity or whatever, that in itself kind of explains a lot of what goes on there, because it's mind blowing. Like if you come in to the Burning Man, like a super traditional, like I don't know, ultra conservative, like closed minded person, like your head would totally explode because
Yeah.
they're, yeah.
Well, then that plays into why I even went the first time, which was 2 years ago. I knew what Burning Man was. Like, I had been in the party scene. What I assumed that was there to be offered was not interesting to me, right? I'm just like, like glow sticks and EDM music. Like I like those things, but those are cool. But what, I don't know that I need to drive out to the middle of the Nevada desert to have those. Like, go to a club on a weekend, So, but I read that book, Stealing Fire by Jamie Will, and he talked about the infrastructure and really got me thinking. And I got curious, right? Like, wow, how do you build a city in a short period of time that has 80,000 inhabitants with working roads? And like, you don't hear about a lot of injuries and like, but yeah, like you do hear all this crazy, like, what is it? And that was what really brought me there the first time was curiosity. I was like, how does this thing work? And so I was very fortunate to get in with a wonderful group known as the Sundowners Camp, and ride in their art car and go out and like see this firsthand, like from the DJ's perspective and just the logistics that go into it. Like they had a special jump seat on the car that we would take turns riding in that was a safety position where we sat up there with a light and we would watch for people as we drove in the night. And like we had hand signals and like there was this whole production element and like underneath the surface of all this glowing, loud magic that is Burning Man that's constantly going on for like 24/7 once it gets going, there's this infrastructure, right? There's this mechanism for which it works, and there's these like really simple principles that people come together and they agree on, and it's a magical environment. Like, and is it hard on people? Do people get hurt? Is it more than people can take? Absolutely. That's why they call it the burn. You're burning, like you're using all your calories, your energy, your sleep, your
It's so
senses, your
hot.
stimulation. It's so hot, everything. So it really pushes your humanity. But what's amazing is the people that you find there are very intelligent. Like they're very smart, they're very capable, they're very clever, like they can figure things out. And it's this massive curiosity that draws people out there and they want to see how do I push the limit a little bit more? How do I be a little bit more of myself? What does that look like? And they test it out. And it's just beautiful
And
to
they're
witness and
curious.
behold.
Absolutely. They're curious also to make sure that you're okay. And like, and if you want like their like little thing, or everybody's coming with something to give,
Yeah.
but the reward, it is really hard on your body and your mind. It's just a lot to process, like lightning bolt hitting you for 3 seconds or something style. Just, it takes a lot to process, but the reward is a lot of things that are even beyond your capacity to imagine. Really beautiful things. You have
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to learn about. Hey, and also another quick thing. Albert Einstein had some thoughts on curiosity, and it was important to his scientific inquiry in everyday life. And here's some
Yeah, let's
quotes.
hear it, man.
The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery every day. I have no special talent. I'm only passionately curious. It is a miracle that curiosity survives formal education. Because we're just talking about this. He criticized the education system for stifling curiosity and creativity, emphasizing the need for freedom and learning, and never lose a holy curiosity. Einstein saw curiosity as almost sacred, a driving force that should be nurtured and preserved throughout one's life. His thoughts on curiosity reflect his belief that it's a vital component of intellectual and personal growth. So
Yeah.
Einstein always had some little nuggets for us.
Yeah, well, I love Einstein. There's so many good quotes from him and just his kind of approach to it, and like, yeah, I think it's beautiful. But I think we're coming to a close, and so Shannon, did you have some additional quotes that you wanted to read? Because I have a question I want to ask, and then I want to make sure also too if Libby, you have any other thoughts, and then we'll start to bring this in and answer this question. Did curiosity kill the cat? Shannon,
Oh
did you have
man,
some quote?
I looked up curiosity quotes, and what's so wonderful about it is that it's literally just like an endless supply of just like little tidbits,
Yeah,
right? Walt Disney said, "We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths."
oh, beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. Curiosity is the lust of the mind. I liked that one.
Wow, who said that?
Thomas Hobbes.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
Um,
interesting.
Sally Ride said, "Science is fun. Science is curiosity. We all have natural curiosity. Science is a process of investigating. It's posing questions and coming up with a method. It's delving in."
Yeah, totally. Having a strategy to it, not just like peeing on the electric fence, for sure.
Right? Yeah. William Arthur Ward said, "Curiosity is the wick in the candle of learning."
Yeah.
Eleanor Roosevelt said, "I think at a child's birth, if a mother could ask a fairy godmother to endow it with the most useful gift, that gift should be curiosity." So yeah, I mean, there's just so many. If you just want to be inspired, just go type in quotes about curiosity. It'll kind of blow your mind.
That is so cool. So, you know what? Then I want to again, in my defense of curiosity, stand before the tribunal of the internet and say and ask, did curiosity kill the cat? I don't believe curiosity did. I think a litany of other things could have, from bad intentions to not being cautious enough. But I stand in defense and plead that curiosity is not the guilty party in this. And I'd love to hear just kind of your closing thoughts from each of you. Libby, you want to? What's your take on it?
I probably uh, lean in that direction too, where wasn't the curiosity that caused the downfall. It was whatever was on the other side of it, which is why we should take caution. Um, and there's this quote. I don't know if it necessarily aligns with curiosity, but it's a quote that Preston uh, has been repeating it, and I feel like it'd be good to share. But um, it talks about what is larger, what is bigger, the sky or the mind, and you put them next to each other, and one contains the other. And I wanted to share that just in regards to just like how like perceptive we can be in regards to you know um just creating our reality, or you know um
Totally.
just moving
So
forward.
beautiful. Yeah. So
Yeah, I
what a
mean,
what a beautiful quote. Yeah. Go ahead, Shane. What are your thoughts?
well, nothing would, I mean, there's philosophy forever. And like without consciousness, there would be no existence, right? I mean, existence would be irrelevant without the consciousness part of it, to kind of to your point, Libby. But hey, also, I mean, just traditionally speaking, I know we've switched up our format going from video to audio, just for good reasons, so we can stay more focused and such. But up to this point, I've been reading a poem every time, so I got something.
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, definitely. Love it.
Yeah. Okay. Outside of the box. Oh, what we find when we expand the mind, perceiving all thoughts from all angles and spots outside of the box. Let's toil our lots and fulfill our plots, and let the greatest be taught, leveraging creativity and raising curiosity to elevate everyone's frequency, achieving harmony in this melody, platonic love, and the synergy of co-creativity, brainstorming solutions like a team, future-proofing symbiotic prosperity to push back against this apocalypse using our collective intelligence, superpowers, and gifts.
Damn, boy, that was good. Hell yeah, dude.
That was good, very good.
Right
I
on,
love
y'all.
that, man. I love that. I love that. Killing it, dude. Killing it.
Yeah, that was
Shannon,
great.
what are your thoughts?
Um, I think that curiosity absolutely killed a few cats, but for the betterment of the human race, right? For us to move forward.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You know,
Yeah.
No,
as with all things, there are sacrifices in order to get ahead,
absolutely.
Yeah.
but I think we probably don't give curiosity like enough credit as like a very early and fundamental tool that we are given as humans.
Yeah.
And, you know, you, you don't want to quash that. You want to, just like imagination, right? You want to feed it and help children and future generations hold on to that for as long as possible.
Yeah. No, I love that. And thank you all so much. And, maybe at the end of this, maybe there is no verdict, right? But I definitely believe that some well-intentioned, healthy curiosity in the hearts of more people could make a massive change to where we are as not just a nation or a community or a group of friends, but a global entity. And I believe with all my heart that's what humanity is meant to be. I'm very curious about what that looks like. How do we get to that point? And I don't know. Maybe that's what maybe we take some curiosity forward into our next episode. But as I'm closing out, I would love if for anyone who has stayed with us and listened through this whole thing, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure sharing with you and showing up and being present. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please let us know in the comments your feedback, your thoughts, and also too if you have an answer, a verdict, one way or the other. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you all so much. And until next time, this is the Crack the Code podcast. Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Gonna find your path, gonna lead the way, stride through the storm, never go astray. Always whisper truth and let your spirit roar. You're a force of nature, crash upon the shore.